Steve Bowers welcoming you to Dialogue in a very special edition with Willi X Evans. We call it Nashville and Parts Unknown. And Willi, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, Steve. Hey, August. Hey, Max. Hey, Millie.
Got those grandkids recognized, we're ready to go to work. Well, tell us about our special guest this day.
Man, I've never met other than right here. This is the first time we've met, but I feel like I know him through his music. I've listened to his music for years, and just an amazing writer and singer and performer. This is the one and only Greg Brown.
Greg, good to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, good to have you here. And Greg, you were telling us you've retired in this business.
Yeah, I picked a pretty good time. I retired. It was in August of 2019, so it was right before the pandemic. Yeah.
But your wife is Irish Dement. You say she's going to go back on the road, son.
She's hoping to go back and tour this fall.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck. Good luck to her. Well, we always try to find out. You are from Iowa, I understand. Is that right?
Yeah, I was. My dad's from the Ozarks in southern Missouri. My mother's from southern Iowa. And
Okay.
I grew up in Kansas and Missouri and Iowa.
All that. Okay. What'd your father do?
What didn't he do? He was a good carpenter, stonemason, electrician. Then later on, he felt called to the ministry, and he became an open Bible preacher. And he was there for quite a few years, and then he quit preaching, and he and some other people started a drop-in school for high school kids who were having trouble. So at the beginning of his life, he was a Southern Baptist, and at the end of his life, he was a member of the Baha'i community. So
is that right? Wow.
He had quite a path there.
Yeah. Well, we had some other folks who've gone through similar transitions. Dan Seals came and spoke here one time, and he had been raised Baptist, became Baha'i, and spoke.
Is that right? Wow.
England Dan, John Ford Coley, and Dan Seals. Yeah, he sure did. So similar transitions. Yeah. So you had a lot of different influences in your life then.
Yeah. I did. Yeah. Musically, I had the church, of course. The Open Bible Church was pretty lively in terms of the music. A lot of gospel quartets came through, and everybody sang fairly loud, unlike when we became Methodists. The music was lively, and I liked it. And then my grandma and grandpa, and actually most of my uncles on my mother's side of the family, they played guitars and banjos and pump organs. And so I heard all that music growing up, too.
So when did it start then for you, as far as interest in music?
Well, as soon as I was 5 years old, I was playing along on the pump organ when we could crank the stool up far enough that my feet could hit the bellows and my hands would hit the keys. So I started in pretty young.
Wow. Okay.
My mother taught me to play guitar, I suppose, when I was 11 or something like that, and I started playing.
Performing, writing, doing both at those early ages, or?
Yeah, I just always wrote little poems and songs from the time I was little, and I guess I just never had the sense to quit. So I just kept on with it.
Okay. So we're talking about Missouri, Ozark influence, all the way out to Iowa, Kansas, all that Midwestern stuff. When did it become a vocation for you? Something you pursued professionally?
Well, I pretty much know. I knew by the time I was about 18 or 19, I wanted to see if I could make a living at it. I wasn't sure if I could, but I went to New York City when I think I was 19, and started roaming, playing the little clubs in Greenwich Village and all that stuff. And then I went out to, eventually I went out to LA and Las Vegas and the West Coast and fiddled around there for quite a while.
Okay. In New York, who was there when you were there?
God. Let me see. Gerdes Folk City, which is where I ended up getting a steady gig. Everybody had played there.
Right.
But this was in 1969, and it was kind of that whole the folk scare, as they call it, that had kind of moved by. But there were people like Carolyn Hester, and I remember a guy named Doc Washboard.
Okay.
great, who played there, and a guy named Paul Jeremiah, who was a blues player. And people like Loudon Wainwright, he signed up for the Hoots.
Okay.
I was there. I only stayed there about 5 months or so, and then I got restless.
But Greg, you had good, I mean, they didn't just walk people in. You had to have skill to get on those stages.
Yeah, you had to be able to play, and you had to be able to introduce the acts. And a guy named Bart, I can't remember his last name. He was from Oklahoma. He had that job as the house act at Folk City. And when he was leaving town, and I was just roaming around on the streets trying to find a job. But Bart said, "Hey, I'm leaving town. Do you want my job?" And I said, "Sure." So I guess I got my foot in the door there at Gerdes.
What made you then go to LA?
What made me go to LA?
Yeah.
Lack of good sense, I would say, probably. But, I was at that age. I wanted to see the country, and I ended up going out to Las Vegas first and working with a guy named Buck Graham, who had started a band called the Platters in the 50s, and he wrote Only You and The Great Pretender. A lot of other songs. I had a trio of some kind. We ended up out there working with them for a while, but we never achieved blend. He kept saying we had to achieve blend because of the Platters, and I don't know why he thought us kids from Iowa were ever going to. But anyway, we didn't achieve blend. So what we did instead was go to LA and knock around there for a while, and then we got on the Holiday Inn circuit. It's the only job we could find, and we played pretty much the whole country, playing Holiday Inn lounges 6 nights a week.
Wow.
It wasn't a bad gig, really.
Not a bad gig, yeah. I mean, just regular work. You got a place to stay, you got food, right?
Food, yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of stuff were you doing?
Way back in those days, we were doing, I think they called it light rock. Cat Stevens and, people, James Taylor. And I was writing songs, so we slipped a few of those in. But it was kind of that sort of stuff, I can't remember all the different people. Danny O'Keefe,
Oh, yeah. Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues, yeah.
Good Time Charlie, yeah. A lot of people like that. We did.
Wow. Yeah.
We would get, one time we had a job in somewhere in Wisconsin. I don't remember the town. Fondle, I don't remember where it was, but it was supposed to be a 2-week job, and we got it in November. We were there for 11 weeks.
Wow.
Because nobody wanted to go to northern Wisconsin in the winter. So, it was a learning. I only stayed with that about a year, just enough to build up a little pocket money, and then
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we are talking to the one and only Greg Brown, and we're just starting this conversation, and we're going to try to get from somewhere up in the Midwest and the North to Nashville, Tennessee. We'll do that in this next segment, so stay with us.
All right.
This is Dialogue here at E+ TV 6, and we'll be right back with more as we continue this conversation with Greg Brown. Welcome back to Dialogue at E+ TV 6 and a special edition. We call it Nashville and Parts Unknown with our friend Willi X Evans, and we're talking to Greg Brown. Woody, I was trying to think of what I was doing in the late 60s when Greg's up there in New York, and maybe we should have been up there.
I would have been on probably a bottle, but yeah. One kind or another bottle.
Yeah, one kind or start saying, don't try to say you're that much younger than Greg and I are. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not. Hey, Malcolm introduced me to Greg, and he said that, I don't know that Greg's been this far from the Mason-Dixon, but he needs to come down here and go fishing.
Yeah, I played a lot. I played
Fisherman.
over in North Carolina and over in that whole South Carolina and Florida, Tennessee. I never had a lot of gigs like in Alabama or Georgia. I don't think my music got played down there too much. I have a feeling. But I played most of the rest of the South. And,
Okay.
I played a lot in the Southwest. Well, I played everywhere, really.
Right.
Europe.
Yeah. Greg, how do you describe your music? Because I see folk and whatever. What is a description that you give.
I let people call it whatever they want to, as long as they come out and see the show and buy a record. I don't care. I don't know. It's a mishmash, I suppose, would be the closest. But, I mean, I really loved, I love the old folk music, which I heard as a kid. My grandpa did a lot of the old Appalachian tunes.
Okay.
And then the church songs, and I liked country music. I liked rock and roll. We're lucky here in America. We just have or we did anyway,
Right.
have such a great variety of wonderful music. So I just grew up loving music and listening to it, and I did what I could with it.
Yeah. Willi, I know because you write a lot of stuff, Willi, and there are times it's kind of a folk storytelling type stuff that you do, but I never have considered that really. I don't know how to describe you either, Willi.
I don't need.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just
like
like.
Monk used to say, there's two kinds of music, good and bad.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty close.
That's it.
Well, Greg, after the Holiday Inn circuit, how long before you got to Nashville?
Oh, I never did mess much with Nashville. I went down there a few times when I was young, and I met a lot of the A&R people and the record label people. I didn't like any of them.
Okay.
They all seemed like thieves and liars to me, pretty much. So I never went. I never went around Nashville for business. I ended up starting my own record label, and then I turned it over to another guy, and it did pretty good for an independent label.
Okay.
And I didn't have to deal with business people that way.
Okay. So you started doing it yourself.
Pretty much, I did it by myself for a while, at which point it was just several boxes and a notebook. But then I moved up to St. Paul, Minnesota, to work on a radio program called the Prairie Home Companion.
All right.
It ended up being kind of busier work than I expected. And another guy named Bob Feldman, all we did really was move the boxes and the notebook over to his apartment. And then he was Red House Records. So
Okay.
he's the guy that actually made it into a bona fide little label.
So what was working with the Prairie Home Companion like?
It was, generally speaking, it was pretty fun. I mean, I would write little comedy bits, and I would write some songs every week. But the main thing was really I got to jam with people like Chet Atkins and, the Preservation Jazz Band. I mean, I got to jam with people I never would have gotten to jam with.
Right.
For me, that was the big thrill of it, was getting to meet all those great musicians. And we traveled a lot too. We did shows all over the country. I only worked for about, I think, 2.5 years, and then I took off. But I enjoyed the time I was there.
I started saying it became kind of for public broadcast, just a landmark show.
Oh, it was, yeah, sure was, yeah. And that helped me when I started touring more, because you kind of have to have some kind of way into the media if you're going to try and have a career. And having the Prairie Home Show, a lot of people listen to it every week. And so, when I'd hit town, I had a chance of pulling the crowd.
Okay. So it became an advertising hook then.
It really did, yeah.
Marketing hook, yeah.
A lot, yeah.
Okay. It's that's and talking to people that have pursued this, Greg, as a life and as a way to make a living, everybody's got different stories, and things just kind of fall into place. I mean,
well, they do or they don't.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, but there's no career planning that I've ever been able to detect. Somebody may have one, but I haven't heard it yet.
No, the main thing you got to do is just try and get as good as you can and play as many places as you can and hope for the best. Really, that's about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it interests me because, like I said, you're a very young man. You take off to New York, and many people are not going to do that.
Yeah.
I remember Jay Leno said he'd run people all the time and say, well, I'd love to be a comedian, but I got to stay in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And he said, well, then, other than the VFW and the AMVETS or something, you're not going to be working much, Yeah,
you got to be able to get out there and go. That's for sure. Yeah.
You felt, obviously, was there a point in your career where you said, okay, I have got this thing done now? I mean, that I'm going to be okay.
Well, I think when I was somewhere around 31, I started playing less bars and I started playing more little concerts. And,
Right.
so things started to pick up for me about that age. But before that, I'd be playing in a bar and then I'd get broke and then I'd get a job and then try to save up a little money and then go play again for a while. You know, it was a slow go. I've often thought in my particular case that being not particularly bright really helped me have a career as a musician because I didn't worry about too much stuff. You know?
Okay. So there wasn't a part of you that said, okay, it may be time to quit this. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I would have. I mean, I think another year or two, and I would have. I mean, I wouldn't have never quit playing,
Right.
but I probably would have quit trying to do it for a living. Right about the time I decided to quit, I got a call from Barry Beckett down in Muscle Shoals, and they were doing a record with Carlos Santana, and they wanted to use one of my songs that they'd heard of somewhere. So that happened, and then the Prairie Home Show called up and said, "Why don't you come up here?" So a couple things just fell in my lap. Otherwise, I'm sure I'd be, I would have had a good career as a road grader, and I'd be sitting on the porch just like I am now.
So where did they find this song for Carlos Santana?
You know, I had a rhythm and blues band back then, and I, as near as I can remember, we had sent a demo cassette tape down to them because we all liked the sound of Muscle Shoals.
Shoals, all right. Yeah.
Of course, they weren't about to pull us in there, but they liked a song or two on the tape, so that's how that happened.
Wow. Like I said, it's just an amazing thing, right? I mean, there is no plan, no preset plan.
Yeah. Right.
Did Santana wind up cutting the song?
Yeah, he cut it, and Willie Nelson put it on one of his records too. It wasn't much of a song, really.
What was the song?
They all went to Mexico.
Okay.
Your dog and your girlfriend and everybody else taking off from Mexico.
Yeah.
So, Willie Nelson sang it because they could, Santana's band, they didn't have anybody they felt could sing it. So they called up their old buddy and he came down.
See, it's fascinating. All these names get put together and you wouldn't think about that. So it says Carlos Santana, Willie Nelson. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, but it worked. We're going to be right back. We're having a great conversation with Greg Brown, and we're going to continue this at Dialogue here at E+ TV6.
I'm the bird and the worm, I lie still and squirm. I'm soft and I'm firm and I'm all of those things with my baby. I'm a poet, I'm mute, I'm ugly, I'm cute, I'm rich, destitute, and I'm all of those things with my baby. Oh, and it's love, and it's love, and it's love that sets us free. And she's all of those things with me. I'm work, I'm a toy, I'm a girl, I'm a boy, I'm the sad side of joy. And I'm all of those things with my baby. Cloudy, I'm clear, I'm the arrow, the deer, I'm gone, I'm right here, and I'm all of those things with my baby. Oh, and it's love, and it's love, and it's love that sets us free. And she's all of those things with me.
Welcome back to Dialogue here at D+TV6, conversation with Greg Brown. And we've been all over the country in this one. Willi X Evans sets this up. We call it Nashville and Parts Unknown. Willi, this is more of a Parts Unknown. We've been everywhere.
I'm telling you, we have been everywhere now, buddy.
Yeah.
The parts unknown. Hey, Greg, get you a fishing pole and come on to Tennessee.
You know, I'm thinking about coming down there to North Tennessee and over into North Carolina sometime in the fall. So,
okay.
You know, Cowboy, you must know Cowboy Jack, or Hippie Jack, sorry, place there.
Yeah.
He's got a little festival. I might run down and go to that and then do a little fishing around the country if it's not too late. We're just talking about, I don't know when it'll be in the fall, but I'd like to do that.
Greg, is there a real highlight that you point to in all this work you've done?
You know, I'd say the highlight for me was just getting to play all those gigs for a lot of really nice crowds. One thing I learned, I was very shy. It was hard for me to get going. I mean, I spent my first 5 years staring at my feet on stage. And of course, I was in bars that nobody even knew I was there.
Right.
But as time went by, I realized how kind the crowds generally are. And I've had nights when I wasn't feeling too good about this, that, or the other. And I always felt like the crowd was like the big hands that would just, they'd kind of just say, hey, we got you here, buddy. And that meant a real lot to me. And then I would hear comments from people, you know, that, well, your song or that song helped me through a rough time or this or that. So I think as John Lee Hooker said, music is a healer. And I really appreciate that aspect of my own time playing music was that thing.
Okay. Well, that's kind of an interesting insight. I mean, you performed a lot in your life. Yeah. Same kind of thing. Yeah.
It is. It's you know, the crowd will definitely, you don't know who you're touching.
That's right.
Oh, you never know who you touch.
And we can all forget about those few crowds that chased us out of the back with a 2x4.
But that is
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being a songwriter and a musician, and I don't know, it just kind of suited me somehow.
Yeah, wow.
I'm really glad I stumbled into it.
Well, before we get away, we want to find out how you talked Iris DeMint into marrying you.
No, it wasn't hard. It wasn't easy. I mean, Iris and I don't know. We just, it was one of those things where you just look at each other and you kind of say, well, we're going to get married. We don't know exactly why, but see how things go. Iris said, like me, she had a Pentecostal background, grew up in the church.
Okay.
The old hymns, you know, those are things that made a link between us. But I don't know. That's a mystery. You just meet somebody and something happens, and that's not all we know.
You know, that church background, and when you share with people that are not from this section of the world, you know, with Elvis or Jerry Lee Lewis or any of those people, that's all a common thread. Carl Perkins, all these people had that same orientation. Black singers almost universally came out of the church in those days.
True. Yeah.
It just, and I tell people that there's something in the soul that I think, you know, Greg, when those guys from England, Beatles or whatever, they heard this stuff, there was something that it hit in them that's rooted in us.
Yeah, it's universal. I don't know what it is either, but there's something really, really deep in the church music that goes way back to our, you know, all through our sordid history and we've all been through. But there's a big light shining in there somewhere. And, you know, it doesn't have to be strictly church music, but I think a lot of music I love has that aspect to it, whatever that is, that kind of reaching out and all that stuff that go with it. That seems to be the music I'm most drawn to.
Well, it's like I said, you can categorize it however you want to, and good music is good music, and the other is not. But there's I don't know what that is, but there's something universal in that. It just permeates this too much.
Yeah, I agree.
It does. Greg, a real pleasure having this opportunity to see you, and Willi, appreciate you setting this up.
really
I always learn things from this, and it gives a personality and a face to the music that we have known, heard, and loved. And we really, really appreciate it, Greg. Continued best. And
well, thank you. You too. And I'll hope to see you all down there someday.
okay, well,
Thanks, Greg.
We look forward to it. Greg, best way, you're on YouTube, I know. Any other place that we can find your music, or you want us to go?
Oh, in certain alleys on certain nights, you know, if you know where to go. I mean,
All right. We'll be looking for you, Greg. Thanks so very much. Thanks, Willie. Thanks to all of you for being with us. We're going to close out with a song. Stay with us here at E Plus TV6, because this is the place where the dialogue continues.
There was something in our church back when I was a kid called backsliding, and you'd be saved. And then particularly guys like pushing 40, a lot of them got saved. And then they would get all cleaned up, and they'd stop drinking, and they'd quiet their life down, and they'd come to church, and that would last for about a month, maybe 6 weeks, and then you'd see them just kind of getting worked up. And a lot of people got worked up in church, but their getting worked up was a little different. A lot of people were working up, getting ready to go into the Spirit, and these were guys who were getting worked up and getting ready to go to the bar. And that's what they would do. They'd go out and they'd backslide, and they'd do about 5-6 weeks of sin in about 2 nights. And that's what this song is about. I'm a poor backslider. And, well, not a bad way to go, really, I guess. Backslider, pit of sin. Every time I crawl out, I slip back in. Come save me. Get a hold of my hand. Don't you let me slide down in the dark again. Preacher told me. Preacher told me. Jesus laid down his life for my sin. I'd do the same if I could do it just like him. 3 days in the grave sounds good to me. I just have a little problem with eternity. Well, the preacher told me hope is never gone. I comb my hair with water, and I put my white shirt on one Sunday morning, put the family in the car. I dropped them off at church, and I went on to the bar. Then Audrey left me. She took my kids. I miss my children. I'm sorry for what I did. When I get to drinking, I lose control. When you lose your family, it's like you lost your soul. Poor backslider, in the pit of sin. I try to crawl out, but I slip back in. Come save me. Get a hold of my hand, oh now. Don't you let me slide down in the dark.